Welcome to today's episode of the AI Trailblazer podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest. He is none other than Bradford, the co-founder and CEO at ChargeMate. So, for those of you who are just joining the podcast, we are Convert Inbox and we specialize in helping B2B software companies grow their business and revenue. So, if you own a B2B software company and you are interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs below. So, Bradford, let's start off with yourself. What's your background and what led you to start ChargeMate?
Thanks, Bruce, for having me on the podcast. It's great to be here today. Um, my background, I studied environmental science and energy at Georgetown. I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to make something in the climate technology space my career. I worked for about 4 years with Accenture as a strategy consultant for energy companies as well as sustainability and smart buildings. I got really excited about electric vehicles, both as an opportunity to help utilities increase the amount of power that they sell, as well as a lot of innovation happening between the grid and our transportation system. And I've been an EV driver for many years, and I had worked for Volta Charging, now part of the Shell Group, as a product lead, developing driver experience related products. So mobile apps, payment systems, software running on EV charging systems. But I constantly felt a mix of pride and frustration for the state of public charging, at least here in the United States. More than 20% of attempts to charge an electric car will fail. And I had taken some friends on road trips in an EV, and I'm patiently downloading a new mobile app to start a charge, troubleshooting a charger that doesn't start, or reporting damage. And it was enough friction for my partner and friends who basically said, EVs are not for us. It showed me that there's a real dichotomy between the early adopters who are more patient to new technology and then the mainstream that needs charging and electric cars just to work. It should be as simple as filling up a tank of gas. So when we dug into this problem, we realized that globally, there's a high failure rate in EV charging, and there really isn't much to support drivers when they get stuck. So ChargeMate imagines a world where charging is just universally seamless and reliable. It should work 100% of the time. And we are using AI and software to resolve errors at the charger and help drivers that are troubleshooting a broken charger.
Nice. So, could you also share more about your role within the company and how it fits into the bigger picture at ChargeMate?
Absolutely. So I founded the company. I'm CEO and co-founder, along with Brian Lang, who's my CTO. I came from a product and strategy background. He's worked in full stack software development, design, and data science. So our skills really complement each other well. Today, it's the two co-founders building ChargeMate, and we are looking to grow our team very soon. We've bootstrapped this point, which basically means we self-funded the company to get started, and we now have our first customers. So we're looking to grow.
It's awesome. So, speaking of growth, what would you say are the main goals for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, good question. Definitely adding more customers. So we're actively scoping contracts with more than a dozen companies. We are also making our product easier to use and integrate. So today, that product looks a little bit like a chatbot, and it can be activated from a QR code that says, need help, scan here. Or we can be embedded into the mobile applications of charging companies or auto OEMs. We're also working on a voice-based version where you could actually talk to AI instead of waiting on hold for a human customer support representative. The nice thing about that is we could replace IVR systems and sit in front of a call center, which feels more natural for someone who'd like to call and talk to a human or AI for support. So those are the big goals, making the product easier to buy, integrate, and scale, and then converting our pilots and scaling up with our customers.
That's great. So, what are the main metrics that you want to improve for ChargeMate for the next 6 to 12 months?
The main metrics, yes. So today, we are turning around 70% of driver conversations into successful paid charges. We're also resolving more than 90% of drivers' questions. We still think that we can improve that. Our goal is to be able to solve 100% of charging failures. And some of those end up being more technical. So in some cases, We need a connection to the back end of the charger to be able to recognize its status or hardware specific error codes. So the metric there would be the overall charging success rate. And that's a metric that our companies are also looking to improve. We also track how many conversations with AI are not solved and escalate to a human representative. So far, we've seen fewer than 5% of conversations actually escalate to a human call center agent. So we're really proud of that metric today, but we still think we can improve.
I see. So, what would you say then are some of the major challenges that you have faced in trying to reach these goals that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so I mentioned the success rate, and oftentimes that requires us to integrate with charging systems that quite fit the standard, which is called the Open Charge Point Protocol. And so we need to make sure that we're integrated into the systems of our customers, and that can take some time. And given that it's not standardized yet, um, each integration might look a little bit different. So that's one of the challenges. I'll also say the broader electric car industry is going through some political headwinds in the United States. We saw the Biden administration rolled out a lot of government funding and grants and low interest rate loans. Now in the Trump administration, most of those have gone away. We're seeing that that is an indicator that charging companies need to be profitable sooner. They can't depend on government money anymore. And that to us is a driver of more automation for these charging companies. That in order to get to profitable, they have to be leaner in their teams and they need to be able to reduce their costs. We're a big enabler of profitability.
Okay, that's great. So, how would you say is your company putting yourself out there right now? Like, what sort of channels are you relying on to spread awareness?
Yes, you'll see me active on LinkedIn. That's been our primary channel. We also will post blogs, podcasts like this one on our website. Um, and then we're active in attending conferences, meeting customers, at their offices. So a lot of our business happens in person as well as over email and LinkedIn.
That's great. So, what would you say is the major challenges, if any, of trying to, acquire new customers from these channels?
That's a good question. I think that outbound contact over email and LinkedIn has gotten really noisy, right? Like one of the blessings of AI is it makes it easy to automate so many messages that you could send potential customers. But that also means their inboxes are getting flooded with a lot of generic outreach. So, we find that there's a balance between automating some of that email marketing and LinkedIn outbound, as well as just being authentic in ourselves and making sure that we're, the authors on much of our content. We might use AI as a tool to help us get a good first draft, but I don't think there's any replacement for real human to human interaction. Um, Let me think, what else would be a challenge for those channels? I think definitely you have to contact 20 people before you might get one or two that reply. So it's definitely a numbers game. So there are a lot of AI tools out there that help just scale the amount of contact that we're making with customers.
Yeah, makes sense. So, speaking of outbound contacting and, contacting the right people, what would you say is your ideal customer profile other than just the charging companies and maybe EV companies as well?
Yes, we are selling to charging network operators, specifically those that own and operate their charging hardware. And we found that the smaller and medium-sized operators are a little faster moving. So we're targeting them kind of middle size of the market. Um, and within the charging network or CPO, charge point operator, we typically sell to a COO, a customer support leader, or someone else on the operations team. Given that our first product is automating driver support as well as work orders and error resolution, it's generally someone that has a customer facing or operations role that would be our primary customer.
Yeah, makes sense. So, is it just based in the States right now, or do you have any other goals in the future to expand to and roll out this to other countries as well?
Yes. So one great thing about our AI is that it will natively translate in more than 75 different languages. We're already seeing hundreds of conversations today in English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, Chinese, German, all in the United States. But we'd like to expand to the UK and Europe, Asia as well, Australia. Today, we're focused on North America, but we're seeing a lot of opportunity to expand internationally in the near future.
So what would make it a success metric for this specifically? Like how do you know when you want to expand to other countries? What is the right timing to do that?
That's a tricky question. Today, because our team is small, we've been focused on our market in North America. But we are seeing more demand from Europe that has greater policy goals and regulations requiring that charging companies maintain a certain level of reliability to their infrastructure. They're also being required to have 24/7 support, both on the phone as well as now new channels like ours being AI chat. So I think, we're trying to respond to interest from customers. And as we see more people coming to us inbound from the UK and Europe, those are good indicators. We should be serving those markets within the next 6 to 12 months.
That's great news. So you mentioned something about getting more interest from inbound and all that. So I was wondering as well, like in terms of the marketing channels that you are relying on so far, what's been working great for you, what isn't working as well?
Good question. We are using Attio as our CRM, and it's great in that allows us to set up sales funnels and automate some of our outbound emails. But we're still kind of getting set up with our tools in terms of how we want to automate more um, email marketing or LinkedIn marketing. There are a lot of interesting kind of AI SDR tools out there, both for email and LinkedIn, that we're exploring as well. Today, we're doing a lot of that manually, but increasingly automating more of the kind of marketing stack as well.
Interesting. So what would you say is, let's say if you could only pick one priority to focus on for the rest of the year, what would you say is the biggest priority right now that is able to drive the most amount of growth or leverage for ChargeMate?
Yeah, so it's a lot of new customer acquisition. Um, we want to deploy with pilots as well as larger scale rollouts across charging networks. Many of them would like to kind of try before they buy. So we've made it easier to test our product before rolling out across thousands of charging stations. So that's the big priority is just customer acquisition and enabling customers to um, get comfortable with our product before we scale up quickly with them.
So you mentioned something about getting customers to be comfortable with your product. Is there any specific metric that you're tracking to ensure that this is a success?
Ooh, now you're making me think there's more
Like,
metrics we
like
need
NPS, things like
to
that.
track. Uh, we, yes, definitely like retention. So like how many pilots will convert to a full SaaS contract? What's sort of the time from initial contact to pilot and then to contract signature? Um, and we haven't set up a net promoter score yet, but we've started to see some of our customers share ChargeMate with their colleagues or even competitors. So
Nice.
we think that's a good signal of some initial product market fit.
Nice. That's so sounds like you have had an incredible journey so far at ChargeMate. And then you also mentioned the goal for the company is, of course, new customer acquisition, ensuring that your existing customers, when they test out the product, everything is satisfactory, is working well. So hypothetically, if you had like a magic wand to fix one thing in the business right now that is either slowing you down or holding holding you back to get to your goals, what would that one thing be?
That is a great question. If I had a magic wand, what would I change? I will say, I think on the investment side of our business, a lot of investors are scared about electric vehicles and broadly climate technology was a hot sector just a year ago. And now investors have gotten pretty scared given the US Trump administration pushing forward with more fossil fuel forward policies. So if I had a magic wand, I would kind of remind investors to take a long-term view and understand that EV adoption is not a question of, if, but when. And the biggest hurdle that we see to reaching more mainstream adoption of electric vehicles is the reliability of infrastructure. So I think you know, if we could clear some of the political headwinds and concerns and free up capital, that would make a big difference, not just for our business, but also for our customers in return. I think internally, we're actively looking at tools that allow us as a small team to be more effective and scale our impact. So we're using all sorts of AI development tools like Cursor, co-pilots that allow my co-founder to build faster. And then we're also exploring tools on the business and marketing side that would allow me to scale my time as the kind of founder-led salesperson.
That's awesome. So, I mean, other than the political headwinds, so would you say that getting fundraising from investors, is it also a major priority for ChargeMate right now?
Yes, so we're actively fundraising, and we have more feature requests today than we can currently build. Today, we're thinking in parallel. We'd love to bring in funds to be able to build, more at once. So, being able to unlock larger customers, we see opportunities to serve charging hardware manufacturers as well as software providers. So, big part of the fundraise is just allowing us to grow faster and unlock new customer segments. Certainly, that would allow us to serve the European and Asian markets faster as well.
Yeah, makes sense. So lastly, let's touch a bit on the industry trends. What are some major shifts that you are seeing in your industry right now? I know you mentioned a bit about the political headwinds already, but are there any other noteworthy trends?
Yeah, good question. So today, the charging industry in North America is really focused on operational uptime. So we have regulations that stipulate chargers need to be online and working between 97 and 99% of the time. However, that's a big delta between the charger might be online. That doesn't mean that a driver is able to actually successfully charge there. And so we're advocating for the real user experience metric being what is the successful charge attempt rate of all the attempts, how many were successful at starting a charge and continuing to charge until the vehicle's done. So I think that's a big shift that's happening as the charging industry thinks more about the user experience and what really matters for the driver, as well as for their profitability. Um, Another trend is that we're seeing utilization of chargers, generally speaking, go up, but not all areas have utilization levels that are profitable. And this is a challenge that the industry's faced for many years of kind of chicken or the egg. You don't get many EV drivers on the roads without public chargers, but the charging companies can't be profitable unless they can guarantee and underwrite that there's a certain level of usage for those charging systems. So there's all sorts of interesting tools and AI being applied for helping charging companies plan out expansion and make sure that they're putting chargers in areas of the grid where they can guarantee, some utilization from drivers. So some interesting approaches to this have been mixing both public and private charging together. So you might have like an anchor tenant or fleet that uses the chargers for part of the day or the night, and then more usage of charging for public, consumer drivers during the daytime.
Interesting. Okay. So that is actually about it for the podcast interview. Bradford, once again, thank you for agreeing to jump on this podcast and sharing your valuable insights.
Thank you, Bruce, for the opportunity to be here. Great speaking.